Okay, hello everyone. I'm pleased to welcome you to our third E4 Brown Bag of the 2024-25 school year. I'm Paul Gorin, I'm the director of the E4 Center, and it's great to have you join us here this afternoon. Today, we're continuing a series of discussions involving colleagues from the E4 Center, the School of Education and Social Policy here at Northwestern, Curriculum Associates, and our various district partners. This initiative to do virtual brown bags originated from E4 Center's first annual convening in May 2023, where we formed a learning community with members from Chicago Public Schools, Oka Public Schools, and several other school districts around the country. The key takeaway from those sessions was a unanimous desire to do more in-person events, and importantly, to create and sustain our learning community over time. One way we are fostering this ongoing learning community is through a series of virtual brown bag discussions on a wide range of topics. This is our third brown bag of the academic year. We look forward to seeing you back here on March 20th at noon Central Time to hear from Dr. Chloe Gibbs from Northwestern University, from Notre Dame University, and on April 10th, when the Chicago Public Schools mathematics team will join us for our last brown bag of the year. We also wanted to let you know that our previous brown bags are available on our website at e4.northwestern.edu. Today's presentation will be available in the near future. We'll let you know once that's up on our website. For our third session of the 2024-25 school year, we're excited to welcome our colleague and friend, Dr. Kadir Bahar. Dr. Bahar is an associate professor in the Department of Educational Psychology at the University of Georgia. His research broadly explores achievement and creativity both within and outside of school contexts through equity and empowerment lenses, with theoretical frameworks from critical pedagogy and cognitive psychology. He is currently a visiting fellow at the Center for Education Efficacy, Excellence, and Equity, better known as the E4 Center, which is housed in the School of Education and Social Policy here at Northwestern. Through this role, he is conducting research on the development of gender-based excellence gaps among young children. With that, I hand it off to Kadir. Welcome to our Brown Bag series.
Thank you so much, Paul, for this beautiful introduction. Let me pull over my PowerPoint. Can everyone see that?
Yes.
Awesome. Great. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Welcome to my presentation. Today, I'm going to introduce and discuss about excellence gaps in advanced STEM programs. Before my PowerPoint, let me introduce myself very quickly. I am currently a visiting scholar at E4 Center, Northwestern University, and my home institute is University of Georgia. I am an associate professor over there, and I'm affiliated with Gifted and Creative Education Program. Currently, I am also serving as a director of researching excellence gaps in STEM Lab, Regis Lab. I'm a former engineer. I'm a former teacher of mathematics. I have taught all kinds of mathematics from sixth grade mathematics to AP calculus in Arizona public schools. I coached mathematically gifted students for long years for math competitions, including math counts, American mathematics competitions. And currently, I am serving as an co-editor of an international journal named Gifted and Talented International, and I am also sitting at the editorial board of several journals in my field. I'm writing columns for practitioners at Teaching High Potential Journal on my corner named iMath. I write on mathematical talent development and mathematical creativity. Broadly, my research interests focus on mathematical talent development with a focus on equity and excellence, advanced academics, talent development, and mathematical precocity. I want to start my presentation with a kind of a warm-up activity. I'm going to read a fable together with you, which is written by George Reeves. The name of the fable is The Animal School. Once upon a time, the animals decided they must do something heroic to meet the problems of a new world. So they organized a school. They adopted an activity curriculum consisting of running, climbing, flying, and swimming. To make it easier to administer the curriculum, all the animals took all the subjects. The eagle was considered a problem child and was disciplined severely. In the climbing class, she beat all the others to the top of the tree, but she insisted on using on her own way of getting there. Another student was Doug. The dog was excellent in swimming, in fact, even better than his instructor. But he made only passing grades in flying and was poor in running. So he was slow in running. He made to stay after school and also drop his swimming class in order to practice running. He kept this up until his webbed feet were badly worn and he was only average in swimming. But average was acceptable in school, so nobody worried about that except the dog. The rabbit started at the class or at the top of his class in running, but had a nervous breakdown because of so much makeup work in swimming. Another student, the squirrel, led the climbing class, but his flying teacher made him start his flying lessons from the ground instead of the top of the tree, and he developed Charlie horses from overexertion at the takeoff and began getting C's in climbing and D's in running. The practical prayer dogs stayed out of the school and fought the tax levy because the administration wouldn't add digging and borrowing to the curriculum. They apprenticed their children to a badger and later joined the groundhogs and gophers to start a successful private school. At the end of the year, an eel that could swim exceedingly well and run, climb, and fly a little had the highest average, and he was made valedictorian. So that's one of the fables I love a lot. And in my first lessons of the course in a critical of education psychology course with my doctoral and graduate level students, I asked them, what is the moral of the fable and what are your takeaway messages from those stories of the animals? And many times I hear great critics of education system, especially the education system of the United States, not just United States, but all over the world. The education system is a huge monster, and we barely can revise it based on the needs of the students. So sometimes students say that the fable gives a message that most curricula do not serve to develop talents. And there are many different kind of talents. It's not just one. And some of them talks about how underachievers might be talented too, and how the curriculum makes people unmotivated and underachievers in some situations. And sometimes they focus on how the advanced programs are designed, and they recommend advanced programs with specific focus may bring equity to the learning. Because we know that the goal of the education is not just excellence, but bringing and promoting equity and developing excellence together. However, we see many times that just bringing excellence or designing and creating programs, advanced academic programs like gifted and talented programs or advanced placements, AP programs, IP, honors, or dual enrollment programs do not bring equity automatically. And in many cases, from my personal experiences as a former teacher, those programs shelter inequity, and those are bigger than the regular achievement disparities and the injustice at all. We call those disparities in advanced academic programs. We identify them as excellence gaps. Usually, those gaps they exist in academics, but they might be prevalent in non-academic domains too. And they are very prevalent in GT programs or AP programs or similar programs designed for high achieving learners or for advanced academics. And in many cases, people mix achievement gaps with excellence gaps, but they're not the same things. Achievement gap literature has a very thick, very historical literature over the past several decades. And usually it is identified as gaps. One group of students significantly outperforms another group in overall or average scores. However, excellence gaps, those are the gaps, the disparities at the highest levels of academic performance. Let me give an example. Let's refer to SAT mathematics test, mathematics portion, and the achievement gap in that exam might look like how the overall average scores are compared from one group to another. Let's focus on a gender. Like in this example, on the left side, the graph like shows the average AP score, average SAT math score for female students, which is 519, and then for the male students, it is 537. So the difference between them, regardless if this is significant or not, this is called achievement gap. But in this example, the achievement gap is not very big. We know that SAT math score is kind of a range of from 200 to 800. 800 is the maximum. So the average scores seem pretty similar to each other. Let me give an example for an excellence gap. When you list the scores of the students in percentile and quartiles, the most or the top achieving performance gap in the top performance is identified as the excellence gap. For example, in this specific SAT math score, in the overall population, when we look at the representation of number of males to number of females, we can use a ratio, male to female ratio, and you are going to hear that a lot in this presentation today. When we look at the medium range, which is something between 500 to 600, we don't see much difference in terms of representation. For each male student, we have one female student represented in that group. But when we move to the right of the tail in that normal curve, bell curve, we see that disparity, the ratio, we can call it the male to female ratio, can reach to 4 to 1. For each female, we may find up to 3, 4 males in that top achievement level. So this is an example, gender-based excellence gap. This is an example for a gender-based excellence gap. So this is the main difference between achievement gap and excellence gap. When we look at the literature, which is the pretty young compared to many different areas of the education, probably the earliest studies on excellence gap start to appear in 2012, 2013. So this is a pretty young area to grow. And the literature, when we look at the literature on excellence gap, we see that those disparities mostly result from unequal access to resources, including quality instruction, including education, other educational opportunities. And they might be based on many different student characteristics, including gender, race, location of student body, linguistic or cultural backgrounds of students or parents. Since 2019, most of my research focuses on excellence gap, and I try to understand and investigate the nature of those gaps, how they emerge, and how they grow. From my experiences as a teacher, I mostly focus on AP programs, AP STEM areas, competitions, and Olympiads. And mostly I focus on two types of excellence gaps. One of them is gender, the other one is race-based gaps. From an intersectionality perspective, I try to understand the nature of excellence disparities or excellence gaps. The reason why in this presentation I'm going to focus on AP programs because it is one of the most prevalent programs that is designed for advanced academic opportunities. Usually, these are very popular among students for many reasons, including like college acceptance purposes. Sometimes they serve as like a natural curriculum option for gifted students, for talented learners or high achievers. But as of 2024, we see that almost every 3 out of 4 schools, they offer at least one AP programs. And last year, more than 2 million high school students, they took at least one AP exam and they sign up for AP course, at least one AP course. It is not just STEM, but there are tons of different opportunities in AP advanced placement courses from history to world languages. There are almost 40 different AP courses offered by the College Board. So, when I look at my research, I can categorize it into three stages. In my early years as assistant professor, mostly what I have done is I tried to quantify excellence gaps by bringing and designing some indexes. And also, I have adopted several different quantitative analysis techniques from hydrology and ecology to education to monitor the behaviors of excellence gaps for longitudinal studies. In the past 2 years, 3 years, I think I have done a lot for quantifying excellence gaps. So recently, I started focusing on identifying the causes through qualitative analysis, and I design interventions to diminish those gaps. So today I'm going to share some of my important findings I have found through the past several years, and I'm going to discuss those interesting findings with you, and we'll have some discussions about how to diminish them. Uh, In 2020, I think we started focus on investigating AP calculus, AP computer science, AP physics data from College Board's national databases. And I have designed a study which is funded by Early Career Award of University of Georgia. We just wanted to understand what excellence gaps look like in these AP programs. And one of the indexes I have generated was ratio of representation between male to female students. Today, mostly I'm going to talk about the gender-based gaps. I'm going to touch a little bit on race-based gaps from an intersectionality point, but those findings will be partially similar across different platforms, how excellence gaps manifest themselves. So in this tables on the slide, you see there are three different areas, domains. We have AP exams or courses. In computer science, we have two AP programs, AP Computer Science Principles, AP Computer Science A, two different exams for mathematics, Calculus AB, Calculus BC, and three physics courses you see on the tables. So the numbers next to each course name represents the male to female ratios in AP exam top achievement. Top achievement means the way how we operational define that. You know, the AP scores, AP exams are being scored from 1 to 5. 5 is the highest or the top score. So what we have done, we looked into the representation of students in male students and female students, and we compared them, and we just basically find the ratio of male to female in top achievement, who scores 5 out of scores. So those numbers means, for example, APCSA 337, that number means in 2023, the number of males who scored 5 out of 5 was 3.37 compared to female students who scored 5 in AP Calculus CA exam. So that means we had 3 to 4 students among top achievers in this specific exam. So the numbers show each exam top achievement ratios. So that was pretty bad. And we just noticed that those are very high. Let's look into some possible different indexes that show some correlations with top achievement, and we try to find out some interesting behaviors of those trends over years. So the first interesting finding I want to share with you is we didn't just focus on top achievement, but we also investigated the male to female ratios in these exams in exam participation. And the top tables again represents the ratios in top achievement, and the bottom one represents exam participation. And what we have found that if you look at the blue circles, those compares the computer science A exam top achievement and exam participation. The green ones are the numbers from calculus BC exam, and the red ones are from AP Physics C. And what we have noticed that uh, the biggest and the most essential predictive of disparities in top achievement was disparities in participation. So the reason why female students were less represented in top achievement was the biggest reason what we have found was the disparities in their participation because they were less in the classroom compared to their male peers. Another interesting finding we have found that when we look into the data longitudinally, the male to female or female to male ratios, we noticed that those ratios, they were not stagnant. They evolved over the years, slow by slow, but steadily they were moving to the parity line. For example, in this graph, which focused on the top achievement in AP Calculus, we compared female to female ratio. It is a little bit different right now. And we noticed like from some study, the maybe the terminology might change, but basically what we do is we compare the representation of female to male or male to male, male to female. In this graph, we have compared the number of females to males, and we noticed that in late 1990s, we had zero point 0.4 ratio that shows that for each female student, we had about 5 male students received 5 out of 5 in AP Calculus. Over the next 2 decades, according to that graph, the disparity diminished significantly and reached 0.6, which means in this 2 decades, female students improved their representation 50% compared to their prior representation, which is a good finding. But having the information that the parity line, which is being depicted with red line over that, this is the goal line we want to reach because that shows the parity line, which shows the ratio 1, which means we want to have 1 female for each male student among top achievers. So according to that graph, even like we are in a good shape, like we are moving upward to the parity line, that graph shows that that will take at least a half century, 5 decades, to have our female student reach parity with male students. So that shows that we need some policies at least to speed up that process, the trend behavior. But the good thing about that graph, we see that the excellent gaps are not stagnant. They are not fixed. They are dynamic. So through some interventions, through some policy designs, we can help them to diminish to none over the years. Another interesting finding was related to racial distribution of the gender disparities. So in this graph, you are seeing an gender disparity representation in participation in AP Calculus exam across races. So again, we have our parity line shown here with the red line, and there are five racial groups have been represented on that graph. And when we look at that, we see Asian and Hispanic population is most closer to the parity line compared to the other three groups. So female students from white population, they are the most underrepresented female learners compared to all others racial groups, which is an interesting study, interesting finding, because we couldn't catch that in like earlier prior studies. And another interesting finding was that um, female students was not underrepresented. In opposite, they were highly significantly overrepresented compared to their uh, male peers in the black community, black population. So even like this might be something like, hey, females are more represented. This is a very negative finding in terms of the representation of male boys, black boys. So that shows that black boys are significantly underrepresented in AP calculus program among the participants. So this finding broadly says a lot, but we also see that the gender disparities or excellence gaps in this situation, they vary. They vary across groups. They are not stagnant, and we see the role of intersectionality in that example. A final important finding we have found was when we looked into the course into the different courses, we noticed that these gaps they got wider and wider as the courses get more advanced. For example, in this graph, you see three different domains of courses: computer science, physics, and AP calculus. And the blue bars represent more introductory or basic courses, while the orange ones represent more advanced courses. For example, in AP Physics, AP Physics 1 is a more basic course. The male to female ratio was 1.57. This number became 2.64 in AP Physics 2 course, which is right next year, right over 1 year. That number grew from 1.5 to 2.6, which is similar in other courses too. So that shows that these numbers get wider as the courses get more advanced. So there is an evidence that a persistence problem happens among female learners that might be related to many different educational factors. Overall, many publications we have documented. I have documented quantifying excellence gaps, and which briefly summarize that these gaps are not uniform. They are dynamic. They can change. They can take different shapes based on the domains and tasks, and they evolve over time. If you want to look into the more about the data and different analysis of those, feel free to look at my studies. I have listed them with DOI numbers in this slide. Out of those four important findings, one of them was significant to me, and I got really into why from just 1 year to another, these gaps can grow huge that much. So I wanted to look into what is going on with the persistence in terms of gender like female persistence in excellence gaps. So I wanted to identify the factors related to that. And when we looked into the literature, we see researchers have identified this, related this with differences in abilities or prior achievement, isolation in the school or classrooms, some microaggressions, including biases in hiring, evaluation, or identification of teachers, and mostly related to self-efficacy, including stereotype threats, parental and teacher encouragement. So in the second stage of my research, I designed and developed some studies, including qualitative and quantitative studies that includes observing and interviewing with students who are taking advanced courses. What we have found, to be honest, we couldn't find much differences between males and female students in terms of prior achievement. Even we found female students to be more successful in their prior achievement. But when we look into the differences in moving to higher levels of more rigorous courses, they were disadvantaged. In this stage of my studies, most of our findings were focusing on isolation, microaggressions, and the gaps in self-efficacy between boys and girls, which caused by stereotype threats, parental encouragement, and teacher encouragement. So the biggest finding from that stage of research we have been into was we have less females in STEM because we have less females in STEM. This is also true in the labor market. When we have um, less people as role models, or when people do not see similar peoples in the classrooms, their motivation to move themselves to move to higher level of similar course content reduces significantly. And again, we have less female students in advanced STEM programs because we have less female students in AP courses, AP STEM courses. Uh, we happen to have less emphasis related to excellence gaps, but I think those are really important because they are not just indicators of inequities in educational settings, but they are also predictors, probably the biggest predictors of future disparities and social justice in labor markets. For example, we know that women occupy only 1 out of 5 jobs in competing markets and labor force. In this graph, we see the percentage of women who receive bachelor degrees across different domains in the United States. If you look into the very bottom of the graph, the lines, the green ones and the gray ones, that represents the percentage of women conferred conferred by to women percentage of bachelor's degrees conferred to women in the United States since 1970s. We see that currently we have only 20% of women, they earn their bachelor degrees in computer science and engineering, which is very related to what is going on with the labor markets. But also, these numbers are very related to earlier inequities in advanced programs. So the earlier inequities predicts later inequities. From that perspective, I think the excellence gaps in K through 12 grade levels and educational settings should be a major focus and should be investigated more. When I think about how to deal with excellence gaps, I often use the metaphor of dealing with the weeds at the backyard. So it's not easy to finish the weed problem at just one night. You need a comprehensive weed control. First of all, you have to identify what type of weeds exist in your backyard. There is a variety of those ones, right? So you have to use the most important technique to diminish them. And you have to be proactive. You have to monitor them continuously. If you are using some specific sprays or some kind of technique to get rid of those ones, you have to make sure that that is matched with the type of weed you have. And you have to generate some pre-emergent actions and emergence actions. Those includes designing or creating policies and designing interventions. But also you have to make sure that your interventions and policies aim with not the grass itself. So it's a kind of an equity excellence balance. There's a model developed by researchers about how to diminish excellence gaps. And the researchers kind of divided that into 3 different facets or levels. The first level is policy level at the state or in the nationwide interventions coming with the policies at the state or nation level. And the second level is district and school level interventions that focuses on teachers, professional learning, expanding opportunities, and universal screening. And the final level is classroom level interventions. That includes fraud loading, flexible ability grouping, and psychosocial interventions. As a former teacher, I have seen that many times how teachers might contribute to excellence gaps. Maybe sometimes we know that teachers and college counselors are one of the most important recruiters of students to those advanced academic platforms, including AP programs. Teachers sometimes they write recommendation letters or they offer some programs. So they need some professional learning about how to make good strategies and decisions to diminish excellence gaps through hiring, recruiting students. And also, many school districts, they use some screening tools or they use some criteria to hire students for advanced programs. Sometimes they look at students' GPAs, they look at their standardized test scores to invite them to advanced programs. We need universal screening with local or building norms to increase the representation of underrepresented populations. At the classroom level, some researchers noted that front loading, which means offering an pre-advanced academic program to increase representation, works good. And College Board is a huge fan of that, and they offer some kind of front loading pre-AP programs. For example, last year they started offering pre-AP calculus program to increase the representation of students. Personally, what I do currently as a researcher, I focus on the psychosocial interventions that might help increasing the representation. What I have done is this year I have written a grant proposal that offers designing counter spaces at the high school level to focus on the persistences problem in advanced academics programs. And I designed it like a counter space. I think that that was the first in the literature that brings counter space concept into high school level to bridge gender and race-based gaps. Basically, counter spaces are academic and social safe spaces that might be run by the students or by mentors or by teachers. These places allow underrepresented students to promote their own learning, wherein their experiences are validated and viewed as critical knowledge, vent frustrations by sharing stories of isolation, microaggressions, and discrimination to overt discrimination, and challenge deficit notions of most of the people of color or people from diverse gender backgrounds, marginalized groups, and establish and maintain a positive collegiate climate for students. I'm not sure with how the current turmoil in the political world will help us to develop like more sound, research-based grant proposals. But I'm motivated to design counter spaces to see how those might help to diminish gaps. And another interesting point I want to take your attention to is uh, expanding advanced learning opportunities is really important. When we look at the data, we see that 1 out of 4 high schools, they never offer AP courses. And another interesting thing is at least half of, maybe more than half of the public schools, they offer less than 5 AP courses out of 40 different AP courses. So this is not good. This is a loss of opportunity, loss of talent, providing learning environment and needed for our talented learners. And the another interesting finding was almost all high schools they are limited or that doesn't offer AP programs or limited in offering AP programs. Almost all of them serve underrepresented communities, which serve Black, Latino, or Native American populations. So when we refer back to our weed control metaphor, we want our grass to be without weed, right? But if you don't have your backyard, you don't have weed problem, but this is not a good problem. So you have to have your backyard, which means you have to offer AP programs at the high school level so we can look into what is going on. So if the students are not allowed an opportunity to take those advanced academics programs, so they are missing, they cannot participate. So there is an kind of an access problem that limits some underrepresented populations to advanced academics. And if you remember our first uh, important finding, that the biggest predictor of the disparities among high top achievement was the disparities in participation. So from that perspective, we really want these advanced programs to be expanded across rural areas or areas in the urban schools who doesn't have enough resources, which will be really important to close those gaps. Currently, as I am a visiting scholar, as I mentioned at E4 Center, and the next piece of my research focuses on investigating how and when these gaps develop, because uh, these excellence gaps do not happen overnight. And if we have that much huge, big different disparities at the high school level, probably they do not happen during the high school level. So they are being rooted in middle school or even like K through 5 years. So what I'm doing at E4, I'm looking into K through 5 data sets to understand how and when these gender-based or racial-based excellence gaps grow through looking into nationwide data sets longitudinally, including iReady diagnostic assessments. So this is my research, this is my findings, and several discussion items for us to think about. And I think it's a good time to talk about and see your research, see your questions if you have any for me today. I'm sorry I didn't mention to leave your questions to the end, but I think we have some 10 to 15 minutes right now to talk about your questions.
Thanks, Kadir. Really, really interesting.